5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
For the first time ever, SpaceX successfully tested a prototype of its Booster 9 spacecraft with all 33 Raptor engines and the new water deluge system, all firing as expected to the delight of the company's engineering team and the millions of space enthusiasts that watched the event from all across the world. But what exactly is the significance of this testing, and how much longer do we have to wait to witness another test? Let's find out. SpaceX once again reminded us why it is the foremost aerospace company not only in America but in the entire world. The event, which happened on August 6, 2023, started with the process of fueling the spacecraft. However, the test team ran into a glitch while chilling the fuels. Thankfully, it was a small glitch that SpaceX engineers were able to correct, and within a short while, the launch was back on. Following the completion of repairs, SpaceX started the launch process all over again, with engineers having to carry out the pre-chill ritual, which involves cooling the fuel lines and refueling oxygen and methane in the appropriate tanks. Once this process was done and over, the official countdown began, and at the end of it all, the entire 33 engines of the Booster 9 came alive. For SpaceX, this was an enviable achievement and a rare moment of pride given the number of failures it had experienced during test launch events in recent times. However, something ridiculous happened less than 3 seconds into the test. All of a sudden, engineers discovered that 4 of the 33 engines that were being tested suddenly developed a fault and shut down after working for 2.74 seconds. No doubt this was a disappointing occurrence, as all the 33 engines were supposed to continue firing simultaneously for the entire duration of the test, which was around 5 seconds. However, the glitch that occurred with these 5 engines doesn't necessarily mean that the entire test was a failure. On the contrary, SpaceX can take some solace in the fact that 29 out of the 33 engines performed to optimal levels. More importantly, the Booster 9 itself and the orbital launch mount emerged from the test unscathed. Speaking after the test, John Insprucker, a retired Air Force colonel who currently works as SpaceX's principal integration engineer, said, "So right now, big congrats to the Starship team for getting through today's test, and with that moves us another step closer to our next flight test." But before we switch our attention to the next flight test, there are a few interesting things we saw during this test that are worth mentioning. For instance, as the engines came alive, we saw a sizable amount of water emerge from underneath the orbital launch mount. This implies that the deluge system worked as expected, albeit for the short period of time that the test lasted. As you can see on the screen, the giant dust cloud that's usually seen after a static fire test like this one was conspicuously missing. What we saw instead was a gigantic formation of steam that lasted a few seconds before disappearing into thin air. As you'd expect, SpaceX engineers had their hands full in the days and months following this test as they tried to get a hold of what exactly went wrong. It is unknown how Elon Musk would react to this. Over time, we know that he is not scared of blowing things up and incurring losses during tests like this. In fact, his approach of taking more risks, particularly in the testing stage, is one of the major reasons SpaceX has been able to advance quicker than a lot of its competitors in the aerospace industry. So we'd like to believe that he wouldn't have any problems taking this in this stride, especially because the level of damage isn't excessive. And hopefully, SpaceX can carry out the next round of testing in the next few weeks or months. Based on standard practice, the company will be required to provide the Federal Aviation Administration with the performance data of every component that was part of the test. This includes data about the site and the innovative deluge water system. The content of this data will determine the FAA's position on whether or not the company will get the required license for the next round of testing, which would definitely be an iconic one. The first step of this exciting journey began back in April, when SpaceX attempted to test launch Starship. But unfortunately, the rocket never made it to space. In fact, SpaceX were forced to abort the mission and activate the self-destruct function of the spacecraft after it lost control. And just in case you haven't heard yet, the new deluge water system is one of the innovations that has been introduced to ensure that we don't have a recurrence of that sad event again. Elon Musk describes the technology as an upside-down shower, and from what we saw during the test, the billionaire isn't far off from the truth, except that this ginormous shower can discharge up to 350,000 gallons or 1.3 million liters of water during a single launch sequence. Musk and his engineering team at SpaceX are hoping that this will help cushion the extraordinarily powerful effects produced by the 33 Raptor engines of the Super Heavy Booster during launch. If left uncontrolled, the sheer amount of force and energy discharged by these engines can cause serious damage not only to the launch pad but also to the humans and other equipment within the launch facility. SpaceX learned this the hard way during the first test flight when the Starship rocket powered by 30 Raptor engines created a mess during liftoff. Chunks of concrete and debris were flying in the air at ridiculous speeds. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said the Starship rocket left a rock tornado underneath the launch pad during the failed launch. Surely, he and his team will be keen to avoid a repeat of this event. Aside from the Starship water deluge system, SpaceX is also installing steel plates under the launch pads. This would help deflect the enormous amount of heat and forces produced by the Raptor engines during the launch. This recent test is the first time SpaceX has deployed the deluge system, and the engineers must have been very happy with what they saw. As a matter of fact, the new water deluge system shows how much difference a small change can make. And at this point, we can only but give kudos to Elon Musk and everyone else that has in one way or the other contributed to the success of SpaceX over the years. I mean, you only have to look and compare the achievement of SpaceX to other companies to realize how well the company is performing. Even NASA, the world's most prominent space agency, is somewhat lagging behind SpaceX in terms of speed of execution, cost management, and efficiency, at least in recent times. At the time of making this video, SpaceX is already gearing up for the next test after taking 63 corrective actions to fix the errors that occurred during the first test. So the next test flight might just be a few weeks away. This shows that the company is proactive and eager to get things done despite the disappointment of the first integrated test. Not too many companies or agencies can boast of these qualities. But then again, you can argue that not every company out there is led by a brilliant innovator like Elon Musk. Besides, the speed of execution for every company or entity would naturally differ based on their objectives. NASA, for instance, is a completely different entity from SpaceX. It has a different leadership structure and, of course, different priorities. In addition, NASA generally undertakes significantly bigger projects compared to SpaceX. Currently, NASA's main focus is the Artemis program, a project that seeks to return humans to the moon sometime between 2024 and 2025. The first phase of this grand undertaking was successfully completed in November and December 2022, when Artemis 1 traveled 450,000 kilometers to the lunar orbit before returning to Earth. As you'd imagine, gigantic projects like this one would require a lot of money to execute, and thankfully the White House has shown with words and action, at least under this current administration, that it is fully committed to supporting NASA on the Artemis program. For the 2024 fiscal year, NASA is set to receive a total of $27.2 billion in funding from the federal government. This represents a slight increase from the $25.4 billion that was allocated to the space agency in 2023. However, this isn't cast in stone just yet, as draft bills obtained from the U.S. Congress, House, and Senate show that NASA could in fact receive less funds in 2024 than it received in 2023. On top of that, there is also a real chance that the proposed Mars sample program could also be scrapped due to budget concerns. This is quite sad, especially because it's coming at a time when other countries like India and China are making their mark in space with different exciting technologies and projects. While the United States budget is significantly higher than that of China and India, it is believed that at least one of these countries, presumably China, is monitoring the discussions around a possible cut down in NASA's budget for the 2024 fiscal year. The exact reasoning behind this isn't exactly clear, but experts believe that either one of these countries could react by increasing their budget and hopefully challenge the dominance of the United States in space.